and bad times. Stay on the line, cause in life we all got a different mission. Wins, that's a given. If you stay committed,
no.
stay driven, you'll be looking
Good guy don't always win. Only in stories, the good guy wins. Fiction, the good guy wins. The bad guy in real life always wins. The villains will win. This one. A bronze. I think she needs my help. Yeah. A bronze. Die. 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 Die, 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 die. And come across. How? What just happened? I teleport you. You're not no. I'm not a human. So what are you? I'm a god. That explains it why you can fly. Oh no. Thank you. You're welcome anytime. Yo. Disconnect. We're touching YouTube now. What's an SCP video?
Mankind by keeping these anomalies contained. It doesn't happen very often, though, offering to be contained as creatures, entities, or objects, and protecting mankind by keeping these anomalies contained. It doesn't happen very often, though, that an SCP surrenders itself to the Foundation, offering to be contained without putting up a fight. You might think that that would be a welcome change for the Foundation's personnel, getting an easy containment like that rather than having to devote valuable time, resources, and even lives to capturing an anomaly. But then you have to ask the obvious and worrying questions. How did this anomaly know where to find the Foundation so that it could turn itself in the first place? Did somebody send it? And if so, why? Well, don't worry. You don't need to try and imagine this scenario, because an SCP turning itself over to the Foundation under mysterious circumstances has actually already happened. One day, security personnel at an SCP Foundation containment site opened the front door to find an SCP just sitting there on the doorstep. The anomaly was brought in for questioning, and while it was soon designated SCP-032, it has sometimes been known by another name, Brother's Bride. SCP-032 is a person, or rather a replica of a person, not a living statue that moves whenever you look away or a waxwork that comes to life when the sun goes down. No, this replica is far stranger. SCP-032 resembles a human woman around 30 years of age. Who made her, who she is supposed to resemble, and just where exactly she came from are all still questions the Foundation have been unable to answer. But what the research teams have been able to determine is what she is made from. Brother's Bride consists largely of plastics, at least the external portion of her body. Her skin is made from a combination of 5.5mm thick silicone and other plastic fiber polymers, all colored with a pigment to more closely mimic the shade of Caucasian human skin. SCP-032 has been referred to as a Type F human simulacrum by the Foundation, meaning that she has an imperfect outward resemblance to a human being, and the internal workings of her body are drastically different from an ordinary human's organs or central nervous system. What does SCP-032 have instead? Well, she lacks any skeleton or any of the other internal parts that make up a human body. Instead, her insides are entirely refined liquid oil. However, in spite of having no bones, no organs, and existing as just pure oil filling up a plastic skin, SCP-032 has no problem moving on her own, or communicating verbally. When she was first discovered waiting outside the Foundation's Slovakian compound, Brother's Bride claimed that she had come there to be stored. SCP-032 is imperfect in how closely she resembles a human being, and this becomes more apparent the closer one gets to her. At a distance, she can maintain some illusion of appearing to be fully human. However, her appearance becomes less and less convincing as someone approaches. Naturally, the sight of an uncanny, rubbery, almost human is enough to unsettle someone, perhaps even cause discomfort. But this also happens to be unrelated to SCP-032's anomalous abilities, which she detailed to Foundation personnel when she was first contained. The Foundation security team that discovered SCP-032 patiently sitting and waiting to be found questioned her motives and how she had come to be there. There was no record of what time she might have arrived on the compound's security cameras, and SCP-032 gave the personnel no inkling as to how she knew the location of the Foundation's Slovakian site. Somehow, she'd managed to approach without being spotted by anyone, but would not explain how she had done so. Security personnel at the site were obviously skeptical, and asked Brother's Bride why she had come to the Foundation. SCP-032 claimed that her creators had commanded her to, that she was to be placed in indefinite storage until claimed. Although the silicon-based woman appears to possess a normal level of cognitive function, she claims that she is not fully sapient, meaning SCP-032 does not possess the intelligence or understanding of other human beings, at least according to her. By her own admission, SCP-032 is an intermediary, acting on behalf of her creators, although the SCP Foundation has yet to be able to verify this. As for her anomalous abilities, SCP-032 was kind enough to detail these to the security personnel that first found her. She has an innate ability to influence any biological entity in her immediate vicinity. In other words, any organism that gets too close. Well, not quite any. There is a limitation to her power. SCP-032 can only affect a creature or organism not created by, related to, or influenced by humanity.
What about their god? Oh, what about 68201?
Not created by, related to, or influenced by humanity. So, plants, animals, even microorganisms like bacteria all fall into the category of things that SCP-032 has an effect on. According to the various tests the Foundation's researchers have conducted, the exact nature of how SCP-032's abilities work seems to vary, but her presence always causes massive and irreversible damage to an animal or organism's ability to exchange or use energy. For example, when SCP-032 is surrounded by wild flora, These plants will lose the ability to conduct the
Anytime.
process of photosynthesis. They therefore can no longer produce or consume energy, preventing them from continued growth
Do you
and
have a
ultimately
mum
causing
or dad?
death. In much the
No.
same vein, any
Not
animals that come into
anymore.
close contact with SCP-032 will find themselves
Well,
unable
not
to
all
use their
good, but
respiratory or
yeah.
digestive systems, rendering
I
them
understand.
unable to
I know
breathe
what you mean.
oxygen or properly consume food. Not even germs and other microorganisms are safe from SCP-032's effects. Although when it comes to these microscopic life forms, her ability
They
seems
got
to focus
bit
solely on their
and
reproductive
turned.
systems. And if bacteria cannot
So
divide
I
itself,
went on the
it
roof
cannot spread.
and
At present, the
I
SCP
slept there for a
Foundation keeps
couple of
Brothers
days.
Bride housed in an automated containment unit, restricting the amount of direct contact personnel
And
can have with her,
here
unless they
are-
are there to conduct authorized experiments or
finally,
other necessary research-related
now
tasks.
the rest of
Staff
me.
are to leave SCP-032 alone. Any interviews with her are not even carried out in person, and instead researchers use a remote communication array to ask SCP-032 more about her origin, her creators, and her abilities. This probably seems a little overcautious, right? After all, SCP-032 has no effect on the human body, and isn't aggressive or outwardly hostile. Maybe locking her in a room is excessive, but remember, her degenerative abilities do affect microorganisms and bacteria, even those that are beneficial to human beings. The human body is full of good bacteria that aids with digestion and helps the body absorb nutrients, like the ones you've heard about in ads for probiotic yogurt. Since 032's effects don't discriminate between good and bad bacteria, people have to keep their distance from SCP-032, or else they might find that they can no longer digest food properly. In fact, no biological material is allowed anywhere near her. No houseplants, no pets, nothing. Oddly, SCP-032 herself seems fine with this, and has never expressed any desire for any form of comfort, and does not appear to require sustenance like food or water. Shortly after she was first contained by the SCP Foundation, SCP-032 was interviewed by Dr. Alexander Kovac, the resident psychologist at the site where Brothers Bride was discovered. Dr. Kovac initially tried to ask SCP-032 to disclose her name. However, she was unable to do so. I don't have one. People have names. I'm not one. She then went on to explain that even her creators had no name for her, and that she was instructed to cooperate with the SCP Foundation. Dr. Kovac pressed on, asking about when she told security that she was to be stored until collected, who SCP-032 had meant was coming to collect her. Her answer was as enigmatic as could be expected. She claimed that she was going to be collected by someone her creators wished to torment, and finding her in the hands of the SCP Foundation would bring this person greater suffering. Kovac asked if this person was part of the Foundation, assuming that SCP-032's creators had some kind of animosity towards a particular member of personnel, and that 032 was part of some kind of revenge plot against a member of Foundation's staff. SCP-032 denied this, though, stating, "He is not one of you, merely a one-time sympathizer of sorts. He believes you tried to help him once, and if he is forced here, if he finds me here, you will die. That will hurt him. They have no interest in any of you or your organization. You are here as a tool, just as I am." According to SCP-032, the man coming to collect her was a prideful, complacent figure who won when he should have lost. Somehow this individual had apparently been punished by being forced to live in exile from his kin and wander the world endlessly, destroying anything in his path. Yet, unwillingly, his very presence would poison human beings, leaving this man trapped in eternal solitude, tormented by the weight of his guilty conscience. SCP-032 described the man's punishment as a masterwork of torment. She described her purpose in being sent to the Foundation as being to act as this man's last undoing. Apparently, this wanderer would occasionally find solace in looking at nature and find hope in the world around him. Her ability to destroy the organisms around
These are a few of my favorite things.
Do hay fever allergy medications make you drowsy? Unlike some
We
hay
got a
fever
fat
allergy
ass,
medicines,
by the way.
Telfast is designed to not pass the blood-brain barrier.
Too.
Telfast
Thank you,
relieves
thank
your
you.
hay fever allergy
You're
symptoms
welcome.
without causing
her ability ability to destroy the organisms around her would be a way to break this man's will,
Definitely.
and the final nail in the proverbial coffin. Apparently, SCP-032's appearance was also seemingly meant to deceive him. She stated that the man would recognize her and this would remind him of fond memories. But then as he got closer, he would see SCP-032 for what she really was. A crude replica of a human being, reminding this man that her likeness would be forever out of his reach. SCP-032 was intended by her creators to be as artificial as the Wandering Man's hope, and when he eventually found her, either in a day, a month, or in a century, she would destroy his very last source of solace. At the conclusion of the interview, Dr. Kovac asked why this man would recognize her, and SCP-032 simply replied, "I used to be his wife." If we take SCP-032 at her word, then it appears she was created with the intention of being used to torment this wandering man and act as a final punishment for him. In another interview 6 months after her initial containment, SCP-032 expressed a hatred for the man's wife whom she was made to resemble. Sent in to assess SCP-032's cognitive abilities and personality, or lack of, Dr. Kovac questioned this. SCP-032 had always been adamant that she had no conscious thoughts or feelings of her own, and when challenged by the doctor, she claimed that she hated her mold because her creators wanted her to. The first thing SCP-032's creators had done after making her was show her the wife of the man they hoped to torment. It is unclear whether SCP-032 was shown photographs or the actual woman she had been molded from. Not an easy task, as this woman, the wife, was apparently long dead. But the creators had risked disturbing the wife's final rest, just to show her to SCP-032. She was beautiful, so peaceful, serene, whole, even gone, even dead. I could see the essence of who she used to be, of who she still was and forever will be, her soul. They told me she didn't get to live for all that long, but when she lived, she was herself. She was alive, and so I hated her. In the wife's face, SCP-032 saw a reflection of herself, and realized that she had been made just to be a mockery, a parody of a living human being existing only to cause misery to the wandering man who would one day find her. Instead of skin, she had molded silicone and plastic synthetic fiber in place of hair, and oil for blood. But what SCP-032 lacked, she realized, was a soul. This was all part of the brothers' design, according to SCP-032. When the man found her, he would see not only what had been done to the memory of his wife, but he'd also see how much SCP-032 hated her, and hated herself for not being alive the same way the wife had been. The goal of all of this, to make the man realize that he never won. SCP-032 herself is a mystery, but perhaps the real question is, who do you think this man is, and what was it he didn't win? But that's a story for another day. Let us know what you think down in the comments. Now go check out SCP-5545 Mysterious Tunnels in Antarctica Abnormality, and SCP-1730 What Happened to Site-13 The Full Story Compilation for more of the most mysterious.
Airtasker is a marketplace for local services. We connect people who need work done with people who want to work.
Is there any greater computer on planet Earth than the human brain? That web of almost 200 billion neurons inside your skull gives you the equivalent memory space of over 1,000 1-terabyte hard drives. Sure, the human brain might not be able to process information at the speed of the average computer, but it can regulate the movement and functions of your entire body, all while using less energy than a light bulb. That's right. Our brains are pretty impressive organic computers, but there is some stiff competition. Well, not completely stiff. You'll see. Say hello to SCP-003, also referred to as the biological motherboard. Hearing that name, you would be right to assume that SCP-003 is a computer formed of organic components, as opposed to man-made microchips and circuit boards. But there is a little bit more to it than that. SCP-003 is actually composed of two distinct parts, referred to as SCP-003-1 and SCP-003-2, both related, but each with a separate origin. The former, 003-1, is the machine's motherboard, whereas your ordinary home computer or laptop might have a motherboard made out of fiberglass and copper. This one is far less conventional. So what is 003-1 actually made from? The answer is living tissue. Everything from hair and fingernails to chitin, which is a substance found in the exoskeletons of some invertebrate animals. All of these components, parts that may have once belonged to a living thing, are arranged in a configuration much like that of a computer's motherboard. It sounds like something plucked out of a film by John Carpenter or David Cronenberg, doesn't it? But how or why would someone ever construct something like this? Well, the answer to that isn't clear. So far, the only answers we have come from the SCP Foundation's extensive testing of the biological motherboard. According to researchers, SCP-003-1 predates even the very earliest modern circuits by several thousands of years, meaning that whoever built it was certainly ahead of their time. Also, the motherboard is alive. Wait, did we forget to mention that? SCP-003-1 has displayed at least a low level of sentience during testing by the Foundation. Not enough to be considered an active threat unless certain conditions make it dangerous. The second component of SCP-003 is 003-2, a stone tablet that 003-1 was attached to when it was first discovered. The surface of 003-2 has a number of runes carved into it, but these symbols don't match letters or characters from any known language. The runes on 003-2 are also known to regularly emit a pale, flickering pattern of light. Now, you're probably asking, how is a slab of stone able to light itself up? Well, that is because SCP-003-2 has an internal computer controlling it, and not one composed of organic parts like hair and fingernails. Somewhere within the stone is a non-biological computer, fueled by some unknown, anomalous power source. The Foundation's researchers can't access the internal components of SCP-003-2 without running the high risk of damaging it. But as far as they can tell, whatever is running this bizarre machine has been slowly losing power for centuries. The biological motherboard is also known to emit measurable levels of heat, light, and radiations of an anomalous nature. So why would someone go to the trouble of creating a computer out of living parts in anomalous stone? And what is the purpose of the biological motherboard? The SCP Foundation considers it highly probable that the stone slab of 003-2 was actually created with the intention of keeping the motherboard component, 003-1, contained. Additionally, during testing, Foundation researchers have been able to exact partially complete data from SCP-003. This data seems to refer to some sort of potential catastrophe, either in the future or one that has already occurred, as a direct result of SCP-003-1. It would seem that 003-1 and 003-2 must stay combined in order to prevent what the Foundation would deem an LK-class restructuring event. How could the biological motherboard cause an event like this? It just sounds like a partially alive flesh circuit on a stone slab. It's when the temperature around SCP-003 drops below 35 degrees Celsius that things start to get really strange. From the minute they detect a decrease in temperature, both components of SCP-003 begin to react. The biological motherboard itself starts...
Yo, Rook, where's your squad at?
You, come with me.
You ready?
The biological motherboard itself starts to grow, rapidly increasing its overall size. 003-1 fuels this growth state by absorbing any nearby matter, adding anything close enough to its fleshy mass. First, it will assimilate any inorganic material, everything from particles in the atmosphere on up. 003-1 transforms these new additions to itself into the same organic matter that makes up the biological motherboard, transforming metal or plastic into dead skin cells, hair, chitin, enamel, keratin, and other similar materials. This growth state increases until SCP-003 takes on a form in the shape of an ophiuroid, also known as a brittle star, an aquatic life form similar to a starfish, with 5 long, thin appendages protruding from a central body. In the case of SCP-003, this body appears to be the computer's central processing unit. In this new form, the biological motherboard will also begin to create sensory organs that will survey the area around it for more materials to assimilate. Only 003-2, the stone slab, is immune to being converted into biological matter. Next, the second phase of transformation occurs, and SCP-003-1 begins to absorb organic matter into its mass as well, living or otherwise. If you've ever seen The Blob, then you know what this looks like, and how horrifying it would be for any person unfortunate enough to be standing too close. During this stage, SCP-003 will attempt to copy the biology of a living organism it comes into contact with, and uses this template to try and lure others towards it. However, the biological motherboard appears to use a lot of processing power to analyze and assimilate organic matter, and this can actually diminish the speed at which it increases in size. So what happens to 003-2, the stone component of SCP-003, during all of this? When the biological motherboard is growing and changing form, melding with other organisms as its fleshy mass increases, does 003-2 power its transformation? No. In fact, it tries to prevent it. That's right. The two components of SCP-003 do not work in tandem. They work against each other. As the biological motherboard starts to grow, the stone slab attached to it will emit concentrated bursts of radiation. These radioactive emissions have a counter effect on 003-1's ability to assimilate matter and increase its size, stopping the organic mass of flesh from growing and even reversing the process when the temperature is raised to over 100 degrees Celsius. What we have so far is a machine in 2 parts. One that grows and assimilates matter at lower temperatures, and the other that releases radiation to stop this happening. Naturally, the SCP Foundation counteracts the anomalous growing ability of 003-1 by keeping the biological motherboard in a heated containment environment, still attached to 003-2. Under no circumstances is the temperature of SCP-003's containment unit to drop below 35 degrees Celsius, and normally no living person is permitted to make any direct contact with the machine. However, in the event of an emergency resulting in a loss of power, Foundation staff are required to huddle skin to skin with the fleshy mass of the motherboard, in an attempt to keep it warm through their own body heat, much like how penguins huddle together for warmth. Of course, those unlucky members of personnel probably hope they can generate enough heat between them to keep 003-1 from starting to grow. Otherwise, they'll know they'll be the first that the biological motherboard will absorb. Should a member of personnel be chosen for this particularly unpleasant task of being on hand to keep 003 warm, then they will be made to submit for a full examination beforehand. No one can be allowed close to SCP-003 if they're carrying any bodily parasites like tapeworms or head lice. They would all be extra organisms for 003-1 to absorb. Foundation staff are also required to be decontaminated both before and after directly dealing with SCP-003. And of course, no member of the SCP Foundation is permitted to ever detach the biological motherboard from the stone component. Given that 003-2 is the only device capable of reducing and reversing SCP-003-1's growth, any changes in the pattern or color of its glowing ruins is to be reported to high-ranking members of the Foundation. There have been multiple incidents involving SCP-003, though, usually occurring when staff working in the Foundation's M03 Gloria research team attempt to push the boundaries of the device's anomalous properties. Their interest in the biological motherboard lies purely in seeing how the machine evolves when allowed to grow beyond its second brittle star stage. During one such incident, 003-1 was allowed to grow and restructure for just over 9 minutes, after which the containment area's temperature was lowered, and 003-2 released a massive continuous spike in radiation. Any of the new material that had been bonded to the biological motherboard dissolved, falling away and turning into a dusty residue which was then collected for testing. At this point, both 003-1 and 003-2 seemed to power down, with no detectable activity. The stone slab did not power back on until it was connected to an external power generator. When the same procedure was repeated and 003-1 re-entered its growth state, 003-2's radiation appeared to be unable to stop the motherboard from increasing in mass. When it reached 4 times its original size by assimilating any and all matter it could reach, SCP-003 then began to change form in a way that had never been observed before, forming a protective shell around 003-1. The entire living machine breached containment into the observation area, grabbing M03 Gloria researchers and its appendages. Using these M03 Gloria members, it began adding to itself and forming a new body. As it assimilated the researchers, the biological motherboard rearranged its center mass. SCP-003 then took on the form of a 3-meter-tall female humanoid, with tentacles protruding from its newly formed hair and spine. Next, the part creature, part machine began to make indecipherable sounds, trying to communicate with researchers through these rudimentary vocalizations. Somehow, perhaps through information it had absorbed from the researchers in its grasp, SCP-003 wanted to speak. What happened next? An agent, sent on orders direct from the O5 Council, was dispatched to the containment area. According to Foundation records, the agent attempted to engage in conversation with SCP-003's new form, but any data about their exchange has been expunged. Luckily, this agent was able to restore power to SCP-003's stone component, returning the room temperature to the proper containment levels, which caused 003-1 to return to its normal state. The threat recontained, all 9 members of M03 Gloria were found to be unharmed, suffering no side effects from assimilation, other than a few cases of psychological trauma. One of them, Dr. Tilda Moose, the leader of M03 Gloria, was later interviewed by the Foundation. She claimed that SCP-003 had tried to talk to the researchers, connecting with them mentally in a crude, broken language that they couldn't understand. She ripped 3 of the researchers apart and put them back together unharmed. She doesn't understand human emotion, or pain, or very much about how we experience the world. Yes, I would say the containment procedures are necessary. According to Dr. Moose, SCP-003 is some unknown alien entity, one without a clear understanding of humanity. It cannot understand pain or physical sensation, yet it is bent on remaking the world into a paradise. The whole effect felt like words of some kind. I believe she wanted to see what we could understand, so she could understand us. Dr. Moose said in her interview, "She didn't have time to finish analyzing us. I don't know what would have happened if she had." Now check out SCP-001, the Broken God or Boros Cycle, and SCP-1461, House.
Do all things money with Revolut. You can make low-cost transfers across the world in over 30 currencies.
If you ever take a trip across the pond to some of the more rural parts of the British Isles, you might just hear some tales of a dark, shadowy shape, a creature stalking through the night, an omen of death. It's an entity that has been known by many names, including the Grim or Black Shuck. Most folks will tell you the same, that this nightmare takes on the form of a huge black dog, but is also known to be able to change its shape, often appearing at nighttime. The apparition is said to be demonic in nature, commonly associated with the devil himself, believed by some to be a hellhound like Garmer and Cerberus, guardians of the underworld in Norse and Greek mythology. The dog is far larger than your average pet, with big glowing eyes. It is also known to stalk crossroads, ancient pathways, and places where executions took place. Those who catch sight of Black Shuck are often befallen with bad luck, and for some it can even mean that death will soon be upon them. Of course, this is nothing more than a bit of local folklore, spooky tales designed to drum up tourism. But is the Black Shuck really just a legend, or is there something more to the tale? After all, it's not as if a dog like that could really exist, could it? Enter SCP-023, otherwise known as, yes, you guessed it, the Black Shuck. Much like the creatures from the stories, SCP-023 is an entity possessing a canine form, far larger than most domesticated dogs. SCP-023 is described as being shaggy in appearance, with black fur and glowing orange-red eyes, as well as prominent fangs. Through testing, the SCP Foundation has determined a number of the dog's anomalous abilities. First and foremost, legends have described the Black Shuck as an apparition or spirit, and much in the same vein, SCP-023 is able to pass right through solid matter. The creature can pass through walls seemingly at will, but does also seem to have a physical form, at least when it is kept in containment. To prevent a breach, the Foundation keeps SCP-023 in a walled-off intersection of two corridors, sporting fake doors at 3 of its 4 ends, with only one real entrance. Why does the dog's containment unit require such a specific layout? Simple. It has to resemble a crossroad, even if this is merely a superficial resemblance. Remember that the Black Shuck of legend often appeared at crossroads, a sign that would warn those traveling of their impending doom. As long as SCP-023 remains contained in the cell resembling crossroads, it cannot pass through walls. Should the Black Shuck ever escape this enclosure, however, then it will use its anomalous abilities to incinerate anything in its path. The dog can burn through walls no matter how dense, and will travel from location to location by this method. Also keeping with the Shuck of folklore, looking into the eyes of SCP-023 can hold potentially devastating outcomes. Should any person make direct eye contact with the dog, then death will be upon them. Within the span of the next full year, either the person who looked at the Black Shuck in the eye or a close member of their family will die, just like a number of the legends state. The Foundation has no concrete idea how the Shuck chooses its victims, with no patterns or obvious preferences, only that they will die a year after eye contact. Researchers aren't even sure if SCP-023 selects its victims from the moment eye contact is made, or if this choice is made during the year that follows.
Cool. What is it? Come on. Actually, no. Let's go this way. Let's go. Here. Let's do it here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Well, I will see you a month later, a week later. Who knows? Die. Die. Oh yeah, back to what I was saying. I will see you a month later, a week later. Who knows? I'll be here in this universe or at other universes. So yeah, I will see you then, I guess. Or at the Foundation. I'll be at this universe or at the Foundation. Or in another universe. So yeah, if you don't mind, get out of here.